We do begin with that travel nightmare across the country. Flights nationwide were grounded this morning after the Federal Aviation Administration ordered a pause on all domestic flights. It was over a computer failure, with more than 3,700 flights delayed and more than 640 just canceled. The issue started late last night, but the ripple effect carried over into the morning. ABC's Morgan Norwood joining us now live from LaGuardia Airport there in New York City. So, Morgan, this is clearly one of the busiest airports in the country. What is it like there now? How are people responding? Are there people still trying to get on flights?
Yeah, and to do so, they're going to have to wade through a nightmare. I will say this, Kira, we've thankfully seen a number of flights and air traffic continue here, both taking off and also landing. You can see it just right behind me, many of these planes making it to the taxiway and the tarmac here. But some tracking websites are reporting delays specifically with arrivals. Here's what we learned from them: of more than an hour, with reports of gate holds and taxi waits of up to 30 minutes. But look here, it's a similar story across the country, where we know hundreds and thousands of flights have been impacted by this morning's outage.
So what have passengers been telling you?
Yeah, certainly delays and cancellations from coast to coast. They're frustrated. Specifically, a lot of passengers were just shocked to hear that announcement. Look, this is the first time that we've dealt with a situation like this since 9/11. I mean, some differences in the types of ground stops that we're dealing with in comparison to 9/11. But certainly hearing that announcement that no planes would be taking off was certainly shocking to passengers. Here's what one had to say from Houston's Hobby Airport.
We were on the plane for like half an hour. The main cabin door had already closed. And then next thing we know, they told us that there's a nationwide ground hold and we're going to get off the plane.
So an absolute mess after that. Many passengers just trying to figure out what the next leg of their trip is going to be like. I mean, you think about not just the cancellations and the delays here and the rest of their trip and what that's going to be like, but you also think about the baggage. I mean, they just went through this a month ago with the busiest travel season of the year, with the Christmas holiday and the New Year. And so now we are here. And then just a couple of weeks ago, the Southwest situation. So a lot of American passengers have had to, unfortunately, wade through a nightmare. We expect the impacts from the situation to continue throughout the day. We do know that there are several airlines that are trying to help their passengers cope as much as they can, being peacemakers in this situation. United, Delta, and American Airlines offering some level of concessions or flexibility when it comes to changing or allowing some changes to their flights. Curious.
Well, we're going to continue following this story and, of course, talking about it. Morgan Norwood there at LaGuardia. Thank you so much, Morgan. ABC News transportation producer Sam Sweeney joining me now, along with former pilot and aviation expert John Nance. So, Sam, let's just talk about how this system that the FAA clearly relies on works, and why did it fail?
Well, Kira, that's the big question right now. How did this system fail? We know it's an older system and they were in the process of replacing it, but why didn't it happen sooner? And why weren't there backup or redundant systems to fall into place when such a catastrophic failure happens? That's what the FAA and the Department of Transportation are trying to figure out. Now, it's important to understand how this system works and what it does. NOTAMs are warnings or alerts to pilots that are often given to them before they fly, signed off by the pilot and a dispatcher, so they understand some of the risks and some of what they will encounter during their flight. For example, if a pilot is flying from, say, Miami to Los Angeles, they may run into an area where they're doing rocket launches with SpaceX or NASA. And then when they get over Texas, they may have closed airspace that they want to avoid because they're doing military exercises. And then when they land in Los Angeles, they may want to know that the south runway is closed because of construction. So it's important to note that this is a different type of closure than we saw on 9/11, when all planes were grounded. Even the planes that were in the air were forced to land immediately. Planes that were in the air this morning, they were allowed to continue on to their destination, but the FAA for a time said no planes are able to take off out of an abundance of caution.
So, John, doesn't the FAA have a backup system of some sort that's in place for something like this when there's computer issues?
Here, this will be the number one question that'll have to be forensically answered, is why was there not an adequate backup here? And not in terms of blame, but in terms of how do we lay this problem out on the table, figure out all the aspects that were involved in it, and make it not happen again. Being ready to replace the system in the future is fine, but in the meantime, you really have to have backups backing up the backups, because that is basically the essence of aviation safety.
Indeed. And Sam, a lot of passengers wondering, are they going to get reimbursed for all these disruptions to their travel plans?
That's a big question. I doubt it. Normally, the airlines are not responsible for providing compensation or refunds to passengers who are impacted by delays or cancellations that are out of their control. Now, could the government step in? Absolutely. Is it normal? No. So I wouldn't be holding my breath there waiting for a refund.
All right. Well, that's going to be even more frustrating. And John, just last week, as you know, the FAA slowed the volume of flights into Florida due to an air traffic computer issue. Do you know if this was related? And if so, were warning signs ignored as to what we saw happen in the last 24 hours?
My understanding is that that was an air traffic control problem. That's a whole different aspect of the FAA, and so I don't believe they're related necessarily. But what we do have here, and I want to emphasize this, is a completely different situation than the spot problems that occur with bad weather, to where part of the system goes down, part of an airline system goes down, but not another. This is nationwide. So there will be slowing of the system. There'll be canceled flights, but there should be an ability to rebound much faster.
And John, you know, this also comes after thousands of Southwest flights were canceled over the holidays. I had a lot of friends and family that were stuck in the middle of all of that. So it was clearly it was the worst airline meltdown that we've seen in a very long time. So are we in the clear now, or do you sense more problems ahead?
Well, you can't really say in terms of the weather, but I think that we're fairly well in the clear in this regard. Southwest has certainly said themselves that they're on notice. They've got to change their methodologies to make sure that kind of meltdown doesn't happen again. They're a fine airline, but they had a slightly different methodology, and it came to grief. Many of the airlines, though, out there are still vulnerable all the time. I should say all of us are, to the kind of shutdown that occurs when weather comes rip snorting across the country, and we get snowstorms that a lot of this propelled by global warming, interestingly enough, but more severe weather than we were expecting. Then they just do their best. The only thing I can advise, patience, folks, patience.
Oh, from the toughest thing to have right now, especially going through dealing with airports and airlines and flights. Very hard for all of us to have patience. And then, Sam, there, of course, has been talk about national security implications because of what happened here. What is the White House saying about all this now?
Look, the president was asked about this. There's no indication that this was any sort of cyber attack. This really, what it appears to be, is an antiquated computer system that possibly went through some sort of update last night or patchwork, and something didn't go right. But right now, there is no indication that this was a cyber attack.
Okay. We'll stay on top of it. Sam Sweeney, John Nance, thanks, guys, so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.